and Rick Smith, and the prosecutor, Gene Peters Baker, here. If anyone has questions afterward that you didn't get to ask, let me know. I'll try to get you answers. I need to read a statement first before we start. Charges are only accusations, and the defendant is presumed innocent unless and until the defendant is either found guilty or has pleaded. Thank you. We'll get started now.
If I stand here, is that all right?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. I'm going to go ahead and take my mask off for the reading of charges. I'm Gene Peters Baker, the prosecutor in Jackson County. Thanks for attending today. And sorry, it's probably a little bit disjointed, but we're going to suffer through as best we can. And any questions that you have, I'll do my best to try and answer those as we go. With me, standing behind me, is Chief Rick Smith of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I'm really grateful to have the chief here with me today for this announcement. But also with me is one of our newer colleagues, and that's our ATF SAC, Fred Winston, who is joining us as well today on behalf of ATF. The reason these gentlemen are with me is because this has been a partnership getting this case to this point today. So I'm really grateful for the partnership that we have been able to demonstrate together over the past 3+ years to get to this charge, but also that they're here with me today. There's going to be some people that are not here today, and that is both the mother and the father of this little boy. And but I do have a statement that the mother would like me to read, and I'll be doing that shortly. But let's get to it. So nearly 4 years ago, we had this horrible shooting that occurred in our city, and that was the shooting of 3-year-old little Marcus Haislip III. He was shot in May 2017 near 54th and Park. And today, though it's been a long time coming, charges are being filed against Derek Ren for his murder. Now, there were also 2 other victims in that car, and we want to make sure that we are acknowledging both of those victims in this case are very important to us. It's important for the public to know these 2 individuals suffered a loss that day as well, and that we're going to do our best to make sure we bring justice to all of the individuals that are involved in this case. So the first charge, count 1, is murder in the 2nd degree. It's a felony murder charge. Of course, that's a Class A felony, the highest charge that we have. And count 2 is unlawful use of a weapon. It is also a Class A felony because it resulted in the death of our precious little 3-year-old in this case, little Marcus. As I said, there are 2 other victims in this case, and those are stated in counts 3 and 4. Those 2 individuals were also shot. The driver of the car, who is the father, and the passenger, front passenger seat in the car, the uncle. And both of those individuals are listed as charged victims in this case. I asked earlier today for a bond in this case, and I understand that that bond was just recently given by a judge, and that members of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department made sure that charges were then assessed, or that these charges were then given to Mr. Ren. Derek Ren, who faces murder 2, unlawful use of a weapon, and 2 counts of assault. We are beyond the statute of limitations for the armed criminal action counts, which are usually accompanied in this case, but we have the highest charge of murder, so we're ready to go. A few things I want to just mention, and that is, you know, when you have a victim like this, I'm going to try and raise a picture here. When you have a victim that looks like this, it's pretty easy, I think, for all of us to get behind what this looks like, what justice could look like, and what injustice looks like. This is a precious 3-year-old who no one can have an argument with. Nobody can have a disagreement with. And this little guy paid a really big price with his life for something that is just, there's no good explanation for why Marcus is not with us today. So we know that his family is grieving. I've spoken with his mother, and I have a statement from her that I said that I would read here shortly. But I wanted the public to know this. You know, the murder of a 3-year-old tends to bring us stronger together in our efforts to our quest to get justice. But we should also remember that there are many other young victims each year. In 2020, and I didn't go back in time, but in 2020 we had 2 other homicide victims who were under the age of 10, and 20 homicide victims were ages 10 to 20. Additionally, there was 119 fatal or non-fatal shooting victims that were between the ages of 10 to 20. So this is a total of nearly 140 shooting victims between that precious age of just 10 and 20 years old in the year 2020. The reason I bring up those types of horrible statistics, it's a good reminder to all of us that we've got to find another way than to pick up a gun and settle our disputes. There are other ways to do that. There are conflict resolution, there's drug treatment, there's a myriad of community organizations that help us with this, but also help law enforcement. So I'm really grateful to be able to be here today, that we do have some really powerful witnesses that got us to the point of this charge. And so with that, I want to speak on behalf of the mother in this case, who sent me a variety of pictures. I think that we were able to send some of them out. But before I read her statement, I would just like to show you probably one of my favorite pics of this little guy. And there he is. So he was as innocent as they come. So this is from Mom, who also asked that she wishes to not get media attention, but she also wants me to read a statement on her behalf. So I want to do that. Mother of Marcus says, I want to thank each and every person assigned to little Marcus's case, and I also want to thank those who prayed, who donated, who called and messaged me, and they still do that to this day. There were times I felt I wouldn't see any progress, so for even making it here, I am grateful. Marcus was my 3rd child, such a sweetheart. He loved his family, he loved music. His favorite songs in 2017 were the Black Beatles and What I Like by Bruno Mars. Paw Patrol, Spider-Man, and Oreo cookies and chocolate milk were some of his favorites, and he wanted to become a football player when he got older. Her brother, the uncle, I guess, of little Marcus, would take him to play catch in his free time. He was the baby brother at the time of his death, but now he has a little brother from his dad and a little sister from the mom. The impact it has left on this family is still hard to cope. His older brother and sister miss him every day, and my grandmother took it very hard. She brings him up daily. We all miss him. So I want to end this before we take questions and simply say, I am really, really grateful. Sometimes it takes a long time to get to this spot. I hope that this kind of announcement offers some peace to this family, knowing we have a long road ahead still, but that it also offers hope to some other families who are waiting for justice in their cases. I am really, really grateful for the 2 agencies that stand behind me. The Chief of Police in Kansas City has brought this case over time. It's a case that our 2 departments have talked about pretty repeatedly. But also ATF, they were constantly at that table with us and constantly working this case with us. So I'm really, really grateful for both of them. And honestly, without both of them, we would not be here today and we would not have this charge. So the bond in this case is $250,000 cash. And I think the last thing that I wanted you to know is that there remains a $10,000 reward that is pending in this case for any other individuals who have information that wish to come forward and any other co-defendants that they wish to bring us information on. We would welcome that information. And as all cases in murder, it remains open. There is no statute of limitations. Okay, any questions, Mike, that I can answer?
The background is blurry. You have to do it on.
Sorry, I'm hearing that our background is blurry. I apologize. I apologize to our honored guests for being blurry in the background. But are there any questions I can answer? Mike?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, so seeing no questions, you have our charging documents. We will do our best to answer any other questions for you as time goes. But with that, I think we're going to go ahead and close out unless there's anything from Chief. Nothing more from the Chief, and also our
Hold
ATM.
on, here's the question. Has Ren been arrested?
He has been, yes, and he is in custody.
Also, if DNA, this is from Todd Palmer at KSHB, if DNA info was available in 2019, why did it take so long for charges to be filed?
Yeah, this one did take a while. I appreciate the question. You know, every case stands on its own set of evidence and our own assessment of that evidence. So you can't judge one case against another. People do that all the time, but you really can't because you got to drill down into the facts of each case. In this case, what we wanted was cooperation for all the witnesses involved, and then we got a variety of additional witnesses that came to us late last year. So that's why we're here today.
Can you please ID the mom?
No, the mother asked me not to identify her, and out of respect for her, I'm not going to do that, and we gave you all the information that we can. But just to speak a little bit more on behalf of the mother in this case, she just does not want the media attention. Her heart is really, really tender. She's really, really struggling, and we will do our best. In fact, I'm in communication with her. If you want to send me questions, I'll do my best. I will absolutely convey those questions to her and see if she'd like to speak. But today she did not.
Shannon O'Brien of Fox 4 asked, what was the break in this case?
There were several breaks, Shannon, and when you read the probable cause statement, you'll see that it's not just witness testimony, although that's really critical to us. The witnesses in this case are very, very important to us. But those witnesses also are corroborated by other physical evidence, like DNA, you know, by the ballistics at the scene. So it's an assortment of all those things together.
Peggy Lowe asks, can you talk about the styrofoam cup? What was that the break?
It was one of the breaks. You know, DNA evidence is important, and that's how the DNA came into play in this particular case. So beyond stating it's an important piece of evidence, you know, it is one piece of evidence that is important to us, and I don't want to overstate it more than any other piece of evidence that we have.
Glenn Rice asks, does defendant have a criminal background? Was he someone that had been on the detective's radar prior to the shooting?
What I'm allowed to tell you, Glenn, about his background is that, to my knowledge, Ren does not have other criminal charges that he's been convicted of in the past. So I know that he does have a small charge that he is dealing with the federal government. Off the top of my head, I actually don't remember what it is. It's still pending, as I recall. And if I'm wrong about his criminal background, I'll make sure that we let you know. But of course, I only provide what he's been convicted of.
Under indictment.
I'm sorry?
Attempting to acquire a gun while under indictment.
That's the federal charge. The federal charge in this case, and thank you, John Hamm with ATF, is attempting to acquire a gun while under indictment.
Todd Palmer of KSHB asked, was Ren arrested on a separate charge? I think you just answered that. Or did federal partners arrest him on these charges? So he was arrested earlier on a separate charge, correct?
Yes, Ren was in custody on that federal charge, and a member of the chief's department delivered our charges to him this morning for the murder case.
Andy Alcock asks, do you expect other arrests or charges in this case?
Do I expect it? I hope for it.
Would also appreciate spelling on the ATF source. I don't, do you mean the SAC, possibly?
Maybe you could, we'll give them your spelling in the chat. Would you mind writing?
Fred, common spelling, Fred Winston.
FREDWINSTON? That's correct. All right. And did, Glenn Rice asked, does the chief have a statement about being able to solve this homicide? And if you could step forward, because the wall is blurry.
Hey, Glenn. Good afternoon. I think I've stepped too far and cut off the top of my head. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm thrilled. You know, I think many people in Kansas City don't realize that the effort still goes into cases just because they're not in the news this week or last week, that we continue to look at cases and review those that we think have an opportunity to be solved. Obviously, this was one of those cases. I would like to compliment the detectives and ATF staff who never gave up. They just kept plugging away until they got to the finish line. So great compliment to all of them.
Can we have the ATF explain? They're asking, why is the ATF involved in this case?
With ATF here in Kansas City and as across the country, we're involved with the police department on many different aspects, all investigations, especially those involving firearms, and namely with one where we have a victim like this. We're proud to stand with the police department and the prosecutor's office in this investigation.
What was the motive in this shooting, or can you say?
We don't know.
I don't see any other questions.
Okay, then I just want to close by saying how grateful I am. I'm grateful for all the victims in this case that we will get to know better as we go over time. We want to be able to make sure we get justice for all victims in this case and this entire family. But cases like this, of course, touch much broader than one family. This is a community's harm as well. And so we want to make sure we get justice for this entire community. Not just on cases, you know, where it's someone so precious and beautiful like a 3-year-old. All victims matter, no matter where they are in the timeline of their life. So we want to make sure we make that very clear as well. And I'll end by saying, personally, this is a great charge. I got to be, you know, with one of my kids on a soccer field when I got this call, and taken away to go to this particular scene that night. And it's always struck me as how grateful I am for the benefits I've had in my own life. And then I meet others that are just not so fortunate. So we want to fight for you, for this family, and we want to fight for Kansas City so that we get the right outcome in this case. Thank you all. We appreciate you.